We all know that North Myrtle Beach is the place to be if you want to experience our state dance, shag. And we all know that before 1968, the name North Myrtle Beach didn't even exist. But here are some facts I bet you didn't know.
I dug all the dirt out of Cherry Grove Inlet. I had rented a bunch of equipment. I rented 18 off-road trucks from E.F. Craven and Pat Hendricks with their salesman. And I rented them trucks to do that job with. I believe it was, we used 17 and they put one extra down there and they put a mechanic down there to keep them going. And I got all the dirt out of Cherry Grove Inlet. We got right at 500,000 cubic yards of dirt out of there. We went out on low tide and started digging and throwing it up as deep as we could dig. And as we dug, every high tide we couldn't work. We had to work on low tides. We worked on every low tide. And as we dug it, the tide would come in and bring more sand in there. And we just dig all what the sand we could get, throw it up, and it built up the beach behind us. Then we had them off-road trucks running, and we run day and night on low tide. We couldn't run on high tide, but we run on low tide for a while until we got enough of dirt up on the beach where they could keep running. And that went into the beach nourishment. It was anywhere from 150 to 250 feet wide, built up to 7-foot elevation. And then all the way down, we went all the way from Cherry Grove, all the way down to Singleton Swash with it. We got the job as U.S. Corps engineer there. And we done it and finished it 3 months ahead of schedule.
I came down with the full intentions of locating some land and ocean front and checking into the prospects of building a motel. So I went up and down the Strand talking to different motel owners and happened to pop into the Grand Motel, which was located by the Tillman Pier around 2nd Avenue and Boulevard. And there was a gentleman there by the name of Mose Sindler. And I went in to talk to him, very interesting gentleman. And I told him, I says, Mr. Sindler, I'm trying to compile some data to see if this is a doable project. And I told him, I said, I'm looking to possibly buy some land and build a motel. And he says, well, tell you what, I'll sell you this one. I looked at him, I said, Mr. Sindler, you're kidding. No, I'm not. He says, I built this in 1965. He says, and that son of mine, Charles Sindler, doesn't want anything to do with it. He's gone down and joined the police force. I says, okay. I says, well, show me around. So he took me and gave me the grand tour, and I asked him how much he wanted for it, and he told me. And I says, well, will you give me a couple of days to get back to you before you let it go? Yes, I will. So I went back to Plymouth, and my mother and dad were in business with me there, and I talked to them about it, and they were agreeable to pursue the project. So they came down and looked at it and decided, yep, let's go for it.
Well, it was a small community. In the fall, things would close up because the business was not here. But I was more interested in the education and all of my children. We had 2 children, Nancy, and then we had Derek. So my concern was the kids growing up at the beach. But it all worked out. We were very happy with it, even though I did have to go to Myrtle Beach to buy my stockings when I needed them, because North Myrtle didn't have that. And of course, when you went to Myrtle Beach, there was no bypass. That was a cart path. So of course, you had to go down to Chapin's to get your supplies.
I was in St. Thomas, and I had gotten out of college that semester, and I'd gone to St. Thomas and found out. I talked to my mother on Mother's Day, and found out that Roy Lowry had been murdered. My dad was a partner with Roy Lowry in the Lowry's Magnavox in Myrtle Square Mall in Myrtle Beach, and they'd opened the store as soon as the mall opened. Pretty much they were one of the first stores in there. But my dad had no operating interest in it. He was just an investor. And after a week or so of learning more and more about this murder, they found out that there were a lot of things that were surfacing. There was a lot of talk, rumor, innuendo, and I felt like I needed to come back and help my family deal with whatever was going on, which we just had kind of fallen into as a result of his relationship with Roy Lowry. But Roy was murdered by and of course it was a big news story for a long time in Myrtle Beach. Front page of the Sun News, practically every day there was something new coming out on it. Bad publicity on the business, and you couldn't fight the print and all the stuff that's coming out. And I called him one day, I remember, and said, please, can you just stop for one day, and not print anything else? And but it went on, and it turns out that they found it was a hired assassin who was hired to kill Roy. Roy was an Air Force. He retired from the Air Force. He worked for my dad when he was in the Air Force, and went in business with Bill Jackson, bought Bill Jackson out, and then needed financial backing to go in Myrtle Square Mall. So that's how my dad got back into that. But Roy was involved in some domestic entanglements with another man's wife, and this man hired a hitman to kill him. And so when Roy was leaving he pulled out of his garage on Arcadian Road early one morning to go to work, and as he came to Arcadian Road out of his house, there was a man waiting behind a telephone pole with a .30-06 rifle and took him out, shot him in the chest, and he got out of the van and went into his neighbor's garage, and there he expired. But that was it was very troubling. I was 25 years old, and it was a very troubling time, because there were things that they said they'd done in the business, and they'd made movies, and there's all this stuff that I don't know what was true and what wasn't true. But the man that hired the hitman owned an oil company in Myrtle Beach, and I can't remember his last name, but he served time. The guy that pulled the trigger served time. And in fact, I was talking with Greg Hembry about it one day, and he has I think a cousin that was an author, and so I don't know if they were going to pull the story and try to read. It's a fascinating story. Someone could write a book about it because it was a very long, drawn-out trial, and there were a lot of circumstances around it. So it makes for good fiction anyway, if nothing else.
When we was at 1P, on the farm, my daddy would, in the wintertime, when the wintertime was cold weather, my daddy would help them pull fish in. That's how they made their money. And also they took so many fish with them to take home to freeze. So we got a chance to go down there firsthand, and while they cooked on the beach waiting for the fish to come by, they'd be cooking spots or mullet. And they have these big pots with onions, potatoes, and of course, ain't no telling what's in that thing. And then they throw these fish in there. And you're talking about a mullet. The mullet don't supposed to be a good eating fish, but these people knew how to cook. And they cooked that mullet stew and throw it out there, and that meat just fall off the bone. And you're talking about something eating. That was some good eating. That was some good time. Now, see, to me, I think they need to do a once a week. I think it would do in September and October or November, do a like a golf thing, but do a fishing thing. Let people take their boats and pull those fish in. Let people see how the people lived in Myrtle Beach. I mean, North Myrtle Beach, you sold fish all over the country, not just here. These people bought those fish, and I've seen them pull them in so big they fill this place up with one pool. They put them in trucks. They send them to New York City, Chicago, wherever. They need fish. That's what he sold them to. But you're talking about great times. Tons of fish. And everybody worked together. It was black and white. It wasn't no such thing as white over here and black over here. You work on those fish things. Everybody worked together, and you cooked and you eat together. So, yeah, I remember my daddy doing that a lot. That was a lot of fun. Of course, I played a lot in the sand too, you know, when we was doing that. So that was fun.
You know, it's a neat place to grow up because summertime you had an influx of people from everywhere down here, and you had friends and met people, and you know, you thought that was the best thing that ever happened, and the next week somebody'd come in right behind them that topped that, you know, so that was pretty neat for the summertime. So you had I'm gonna say a big town, city type thing because of the influx of people from out of town. But then after Labor Day, it was just us again, you know, and everything. I can remember the stoplights and all on the boulevard, they just let them blink yellow because hardly anybody went through them. You know, Friday nights, we'd park at the end of Main Street or at the end of 17th Avenue. There might be, you know, 15, 20 carloads of kids just sitting there talking, you know, not doing anything, just trying to, you know, be with each other. As we got older, you know, the Spanish galleon came into play, and you tried to sneak into there, and so you could tell people you'd been to the galleon on Friday night or Saturday night, and, you know, you weren't supposed to be in there, so you'd go down on the beach and come up the steps and that type of thing. Mama, you didn't hear that. But it was fun. It was a great place to grow up. We'd go down on the Waccamaw River and camp out on Friday nights. We loved to run boats. It'd take 2 or 3 of us to have a motor and a boat and a trailer or whatever to get down there. But as we got a little bit older in high school, that's what everybody loved to do, especially in the winter when it was real cold. You know, just go down on the river and camp out. And we thought we were hunting and stuff, but no, it was a little bit different. Spring and summer and all, we'd take the boats out and, you know, pull surfboards behind them or inner tubes or even ski a little bit. That was fun.
So as you can see, we're hard at work documenting history for the future North Myrtle Beach Area Historical Museum. And here's one more fact. We need you. Come join us in our effort to preserve North Myrtle Beach area history.